Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, happy Thanksgiving, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to ADRAMADA, another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy, and today has nothing to do with digital alchemy. This is a special show. It's going to be a very short show. We just kind of set this one aside for a variety of reasons, and I thank you for joining us. This is wonderful. Oh, thank you, whoever's clicking hearts. There should be something about that heart that you can actually see who's clicking them. So right back at you. This show is normally devoted to the dissemination of information about and the use of technology, but today we shift focus a little bit because people are home with their families and because this is a day that we set aside to remember our blessings. Today is, if you're watching this on archive, Thursday, November 23rd, 2023, and it is still No Shave November. I did go visit my my barber this week, and I've been going to this same woman for 20 some odd years. And every time I say, please don't do anything with my beard, that's my hobby. I love it. And she just refuses to listen. So I know it looks better than it would if I'd done anything with it, huh? What a wonderful lady she is. One procedural note, just to continue a conversation that we started a little while back, and thanks to all of you who have offered your input on this. Last week, a couple weeks ago, I announced that I will be changing platforms in the future. I'm having issues with YouTube policies, and it's nothing that hurts me. I can work my way around them, but I think it has a negative impact on our viewers in some instances. So I've been evaluating platforms, and last week I had it narrowed down to two, Owncast and StreamYard, and I was leaning heavily toward Owncast, and then both Tullowit and Patricia Grace at different times said, hey, you better take a look at Rumble. And so they were absolutely right. I'm looking into Rumble, and whatever we're going to do, it'll be a January start, and I will keep everybody in the loop. Let's see who's here ever so briefly. Jason Helms, gobble till you wobble. Tullowit turns up way early. Holy Hannah. Yeah, Turkey Day Delight. We'll cover that for a couple of seconds here. Happy Thanksgiving. So full. Man, we all are. Staying at mom's. Too tired to move or drive. Good. That's better than calling your mom by any measure, huh? And me, thankful for you nerds. I am thankful for all of you, nerds and non-nerds alike. So thanks. Okay, well, today is, in the U.S., Thanksgiving Day, a national holiday that we set aside to remember the blessings granted to this nation and its people. It's kind of a nationalistic holiday. It is a holiday that recognizes the faith on which this country was built and its success. And I know not everybody looks at the U.S. and thinks they are the panacea that many of us believe it to be, even internally here in the U.S. But I don't see people racing to, especially out of the U.S., to go to other countries. And when you go and see people leave their countries, where is their target? Yeah. Okay. I should also mention, let's see. So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving Day if you're celebrating it today. And there are other parts of the world that have their own Thanksgiving and they celebrate it in other times. And I would like to share a very brief experience to that end. The missus and I were married many, many years ago in October. And we headed up to Canada because we were young and dumb. And well, it's a great idea, especially 35 plus years ago, almost 40, to go to Canada in October for a honeymoon. It was not a winter wonderland. It was just, kind of fall and miserable and rainy and cold. We found ways to stay warm, don't get me wrong. But next time I get married, going to the islands. Anyways, so we headed up to Canada, and when we arrived, we learned that it was Thanksgiving Day in Canada. Nothing was open, very little. Unfortunately, we were at a nice hotel, and they were nice enough to rustle us up some steaks. Awesome. The steaks had a very odd flavor, like meat gone bad or something. We were hungry and appreciative, and we ate our meal and enjoyed it and gave thanks. A few days later, I learned why the taste wasn't exactly what we expected it should be. It was not beef. And I will let you pontificate on the other possibilities of what creature that came from. Here at the Rush family household, the kid is here along with a special guest. They joined in the festivities, and I won't detail the whole meal. I know I didn't take pictures of it, and I'm not gonna, but I will share with you that every Thanksgiving, we try to do something new and different, a new meal, a new way of cooking something, whatever. And the last 2 years, it was the first time in decades that we repeated. We did Cajun turkey for the last 2 years, and it's wonderful. I would do it again, but it's such a break in tradition, so we couldn't do that. So this year, following Tullowitz also line, haggis, we smoked a turkey. I've become quite the fan of smoking foods and have a lovely smoker, and said, you know what, as I was looking through exotic ways to make turkey a couple weeks ago, I said, that's it. We got to combine our love of turkey and our love of smoking. And I thought about it for a while. I thought, well, what's the best way to do this? We certainly smoke chickens, and we've done it as whole chickens. But the usual way is to spatchcock them or quarter them or whatever, and then do them. But no, had to do it as a whole turkey. And wow, what a fun adventure. It turned dark fast, and I was really worried, but it came out spectacular. Also, I have always despised canned cranberry sauce from early childhood. It slurps out of the can with this sucking sound. It jiggles in an intact tube like a slug having a seizure. The pale purple color is one that I don't believe can be found in nature. And I was just so grossed out by the concept as a child that I couldn't tell you that I've even tasted it in 40 or 50 years. I just so turned off by the idea. But as I was looking around, I saw a number of recipes for homemade cranberry sauce that looked lovely. And I checked out the recipes and said, you know what? I got to try this. We're going to do two new things. So we smoked a turkey and we made homemade cranberry sauce, keto, no less, which just means we don't use real sugar in it. We use some fakey stuff. Wow. I am a cranberry sauce fan. I have ideas for it. It will go on things that were probably never imagined. Wow. So both were just a wonderful thing. We had a wonderful meal here, wonderful feast. Everybody is in feast coma here. December begins in just over a week from tomorrow. So we got one more ADRAMADA show at the end of November. Then December starts the next day. And that means it's time to start planning for the ADRAMADA anniversary show. We started ADRAMADA in the first week of February a year ago. I've got ideas. I have been in touch with people with electronic giveaways, so we can do some kind of giveaway program that will be able to service anybody in the world. So if you've got ideas, contact me on the ADRAMADA Discord server. And let me put that up. How can you contact Dave on an ADRAMADA Discord server? ADRAMADA. You simply use this invitation that I have just posted in the chat window and come on over and join us. I have started some stuff this week to begin serious growth. Also, here's my regular contact information, my email addresses. By all means, contact me anytime anyway. So we're not doing a regular show today. We are here together briefly to collectively thank our Creator for the blessings that He's bestowed upon myself, my family, and you, my friends. I am nothing without God, and I praise and honor Him in all things. And to you, my friends, thank you, one and all. We're a small and growing community. It's joined together by a small and growing show and some other resources, but basically we've come to know and enjoy each other, and we want everybody to participate in that. Come on over to the Discord server and join the family. This program exists solely because of your interest and your willingness to join and watch it and share our weekly offerings of news and projects and information. And I can't begin to express the depths of my gratitude to all of you. So thank you. So for the show today, I thought I would do just one thing. We're not doing a tech project or anything like that. I just want to reflect a little bit on the origins of Thanksgiving Day in the U.S. And I only came up with the idea a couple of days ago. We all know the story of starving pilgrim settlers who were saved by the Wampanoag tribe. Okay, you may not have known the name of the tribe if you're not a student of history and didn't have an elementary school beat it into your brain. But there is, of course, a lot more to that happy story, and it's not all sweetness and light. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what happened as I researched this. So the first Thanksgiving held jointly by pilgrim settlers and the Wampanoag happened in 1621, 382 years ago. And we look back on it today, many people, with as much disdain as they do reverence. And I find that unfortunate. Whatever its mythology, whatever its truth, there are lessons for us all to walk away with, looking with the hindsight of 382 years worth of 2020 vision and interpretation, and people interpret it differently. And I try to find the good in it that we can use today. So it's stuff that we should use every day, not just one time as an annual day of remembrance. So I started digging down the road of what was it all, how did it all really happen? What's the factual timelines? It's out there and it's poorly documented. Everybody who has anything published on the web these days is not interested, it would seem, in documenting of the events. They are interested in applying a political, sociological spin to it. Some of it using today's standards applied back then, and some of it, whatever. They're just hateful and nasty. And I didn't find a good historical documentation that made me happy. So I've taken some pieces from a couple of different articles, and I'm going to share a little bit with you from them. I've edited them a little bit. You can get the full accurate story. I'll give you the references here. For instance, an article from the title Plymouth Colony. I'm sorry, from historical.com. The title is called Plymouth Colony. And you can find it at history.com. And there is a second article that I took a great deal of information from, some of which I'm going to quote directly here. And it's from a website over at Good Housekeeping. This is an article published in Good Housekeeping. It's called The True Story Behind the First Thanksgiving. I copy-pasted that, stuck it in my paperwork today. This is kind of the point I wanted to get to at the beginning. This, by the way, is by Liz Schumer. And a couple hours ago, I thought, well, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to be prepared. And what I read was no history at all behind the first Thanksgiving. It got about a paragraph. And then the rest of it was the dark side of what happened in the ensuing years. So I extracted some of that I think actually has some relevance today. And again, you can get the whole thing by looking up Liz Schumer. She just updated this article, two Z's, 3 days ago, November 20th. So with those things in mind, let me just share a little bit of a couple of stories with you, eh? Sorry, still working on the logistics of getting this all right. All right. Got to find my notes here. There we go. Do that. In September of 1620, during the reign of King James I, a group of about 100 English men and women, many of them members of the English Separatist Church, later known to history as the Pilgrims, set sail for what was called then the New World aboard the Mayflower. 2 months later, this ship, this three-masted merchant ship, landed on the shores of Cape Cod in what is known in present-day Massachusetts. In late December of that same year, so it was about a 2-month sail from England to Plymouth. And it's not the cruise ship of today's, right? So it was a rough couple of months. Anyways, in late December, Mayflower anchors at Plymouth Rock, where the Pilgrims formed their first permanent settlement of Europeans in New England. There were other settlements on the shores of what became North America, the Roanoke colony and so forth, and that one didn't make it. It still has great mysteries. But anyways, so this was the first permanent settlement of Europeans in New England. And during that first winter, more than half of the original settlers died. The survivors were able to secure peace, specifically by treaty, with neighboring Native American tribes, and built a largely self-sufficient economy within 5 years. Plymouth was the first colonial settlement in New England. Yeah, that one's cool. I like that. All right, so again, I'm going to paraphrase and edit this Liz Schumer publication a little bit. So we know, because it is all the rage in the last couple of decades, to look back on events of history in which we find an opportunity for reverence, to tear it apart and say, no, don't revere it. It was horrible and it was evil and yeah, fine. So there is truth to that. The first Thanksgiving wasn't all peace and pass the gravy. So while settlers at Plymouth and their allies from the Wampanoag tribe really did get together in 1621 for a 3-day feast to celebrate the settlers' first harvest, obviously it's not the full story. So let's do what is the sweetness and lightness part of it. In elementary school, we probably mostly learned here in the U.S. that English religious exiles began establishing colonies and civilizations in the New World. They won over local indigenous folks that were already living there with promises of friendship. And those promises, at least early on and for quite some time, were kept. There was a symbiosis between settlers and native tribes. The Native Americans taught these new folks how to grow crops the crops that were appropriate here and met the weather and sustained life. They helped sustain a growing society. Everybody lived happily ever after. Well, not quite, of course. The story is a little more complicated than that. It is not all darkness. It is not all sweetness and light. So in reality, at least in the eyes of this author, the peace that brought the Wampanoag and the settlers together wasn't as easy to come by as we'd like to believe. That's true. Okay, no question about that. There were incursions. There was mistrust. These are strangers. They're coming to what is perceived to be our land, and the strangers wanted that land, and they thought they were doing it for good reason. They thought that it was kind of a manifest destiny. So again, if we look back at it through the eyes of today's society, it was horrible and it was evil and it was awful. But looking at it in the mores of the day, it is not quite so horrible, except for what happens later. So there was a lot of bloodshed that took place both before and after that feast. Lots of Native Americans and others mark Thanksgiving not as a day of remembrance, or at least not as a day of celebration, but one of remembrance, and they focus on the bad, and there is bad. So if you're cooking for a crowd this year, take comfort in the fact that so did they. They had more than 100 people in attendance at that first Thanksgiving feast. At least 90 indigenous native men and 50 Englishmen came to the feast, according to a culinary expert who writes for the Plymouth Plantation Colonial Foodways. Okay. The native people dined sitting on the ground as they did at home, and the English ate at a table as they did in their homes. It is presumed, though not documented, that in addition to eating, they played games. There was marksmanship. There was probably marksmanship games and athletics, foot races between the feast meals. They feasted on venison, geese, turkey, and other fowl. The festivities lasted for 3 days. Okay, so how do you do that? We say that the festivities lasted for 3 days, and maybe they did, but some people say that the Wampanoag took 2 days to walk there from their normal tribal enclave, and they count that in the 3 days. Okay, I don't know. I don't care. What difference does it make? Well, there was a Wampanoag leader named Massasoit, and for the Wampanoag, he negotiated a treaty with the Plymouth settlers and the tribe in 1620. So this is before Thanksgiving, which included an agreement that no member of either group would harm anyone from the other. What a nice treaty. They also pledged to leave their weapons at home when trading to further ensure peaceful commerce. Nice. For 10 years, 1620 through 1630, Massasoit and the Pilgrims were trading allies and other allies. They traded English goods for land and access to natural resources, and other assets. Now, Massasoit passed away in 1661, 40 years after the landing. His son, Wamsutta, took over. Do you know the name Wamsutta? Yeah, in the 20th century and 21st century, we know them as textile manufacturers, namely Wamsutta Sheets. So guess where that name came from? So Wamsutta takes over after his father passes away. And from the years 1630 to 1642, about 25,000 European colonizers arrived. And they brought with them plague, smallpox, things like that, decimated. I hate that word because nobody uses it right. The author probably does not know that it means eliminates 10%. But okay. So it decimated the native population by more than half. Okay, so that's more than decimated. Wamsutta died in 1662. Massasoit dies in 61, and Wamsutta dies mysteriously in 62 while visiting the Puritans to talk over gathering unrest between the two groups. His successor was a native leader named Metacomet. And Metacomet was not in line with being allied with the incoming settlers and fanned flames of unrest rather than work toward a greater peace. There's a lot more in her article here. I depart now from that article, pick up a couple bullets here to summarize, and then we'll close this thing out. The treaty continued to exist. It continued to evolve. In 1675, there was a clash between settlers and a tribal coalition that had been developing to oppose the settlers. Clashes escalated. There were more clashes. Settlements were attacked. Settlers retaliated with a huge attack on a Narragansett stronghold. This is interesting stuff to me because I didn't grow up in the Northeast, but I did grow up in the upper Midwest and spent a good time in the Northeast. And all of these names have meaning to me. And hopefully you. Do you know Narragansett beer? We always called it Narragansett as a kid. Anyway, so the settlers attacked a Narragansett stronghold. They killed upwards of 600 natives. Another 150 settlers were killed in that battle. And how about 25 years of war in the aftermath? So not much of that has to do with the history of Thanksgiving. And as I said, I just didn't find anything that I was happy with that I could prepare for on time. But that happy beginning, 1 year of ally with the Wampanoag and the tribes and their generosity to teach the settlers to survive. They welcomed them. They traded with them. Right or wrong, however the events have been documented, however these events have been interpreted, we can take away from them now and apply them in our own lives the way that truly matters. And for me, it is simply this. All peoples can find a way to work together to elevate the lives of everyone. Whether we feed and clothe those in need, whether we bring hope to the hopeless, or simply respect and try to understand the world from perspectives other than our own, we all have a sacred duty to each other. We are made in the image of our Creator, who has commanded us to love. From Matthew 37 through 39, in answer to a question, Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So what do I take away from all of this? Love God, love your neighbor, and if we can do this, the world will be a better place for it. We give thanks for our ability to understand and to follow this commandment. And that is my Thanksgiving message from ADRAMADA to you and everyone we know and love. I don't see any further commentary, so I'm going to close this very brief show today. As ever and always, thank you. I wish you a great rest of the week. I wish you a great Thanksgiving holiday season and the rest of the holiday season that we have up and coming. Take care of each other. And if you think about it, that's just another way to say, love thy neighbor as thyself. Take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, call or visit your parents. I see that happening here in my home today, Patricia Grace's home, probably many of yours, and I think that's wonderful. So never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resources we have are the Lord, you, and I. And with that, Good night. I'll see you on ADRAMADA next Thursday and on the other platforms that I'm on. And until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Eep, op, ork, ah, ah.